when our people wanted to be liberated and emancipated in this country, the argument was you can't free black people because it would be too expensive.
You gotta listen.
They said that it would be fiscally irresponsible for this country to liberate black people. Also improve special education services. I will just say as I finish my comments, the most legitimate existence of anyone in this country is the legitimate existence of a black man. You know what a better question would be? What are you willing to do with your power to ensure that a school district that stuffed black children in Willis wagons, what you should be asking me is, what are you willing to do where you had a district that have laid off black women? You should be asking me, what am I prepared and willing to do to ensure that our children get the education that they deserve? Anything necessary.
I don't know what I just saw either. That was Mayor Brandon Johnson today. He was at a press conference at a church, a black church on the south side of Chicago. And he had a press conference where he was supposed to be announcing his new appointed members to the school board because all 7 of the previous members of the school board resigned en masse.
More breaking news now that impacts more than 300,000 Chicago public school students and their parents. The entire school board is about to be gone.
Without a school board, Mayor Brandon Johnson can appoint whoever he chooses.
Late this afternoon, CPS employees and families received this email from the school's CEO, Pedro Martinez, writes, quote, all 7 members of the Chicago Board of Education announced that they plan to resign their positions in the very near future. Mayor Brandon Johnson's statement does not use the word resign, instead refers to a transition. Martinez also writes that regardless of who's on the board, quote, my team and I remain focused on the work.
I don't know what he was trying to accomplish when he ended with any means necessary. It sounded like he was trying to channel his inner Malcolm X. But I have seldom ever seen the race card played so unabashedly by a politician. Again, all these journalists were just asking him very, very simple questions. If you've been keeping up on what's going on in Chicago, the CEO of the Chicago Public City School System right now, Pedro Martinez, the rumors have been that the mayor and the mayor's office have been pressuring the CEO to borrow $300 million on a short-term, high-interest loan to close the gap for the asks from the Chicago Public City School teachers. They want raises, and if you've been keeping up on anything that's going on with Chicago, you'll know that their budget deficits are out of control. As a matter of fact, I have a video on my channel, you can go back and you can check it out, where I talk about the $1 billion deficit that's being projected for 2025. So these journalists are asking the hard questions. What are you doing? How are you going to do it? And these are just a couple of examples of the questions that he was asked. Notice that he doesn't answer a simple, single question.
So, Mayor, to the outside world, this kind of does look like, because the CTU was your biggest backer, to some it may look like a coup by the CTU to get rid of the board members who would not do your bidding and fire Pedro Martinez. Can you respond to that?
What's the question?
The question is, looks like a coup by the CTU to get rid of Pedro Martinez. Was there collaboration with the CTU on your part to make this happen so that you could fire Pedro Martinez?
So every single mayor in the history of Chicago has had the authority to appoint board members to multiple boards. Guess who still has that authority? This mayor does.
What are you talking about? That journalist asked you, or he said, it appears as though you are staging a coup to remove the existing board members who wouldn't approve the $300 million loan that you were requesting, and that you're replacing them with another board filled with sycophants and lemmings who are going to do your personal bidding. And your response is, I'm the mayor of Chicago? Obviously, you're the mayor of Chicago. Take a look at this one.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Mayor, you said repeatedly that you don't comment on personnel issues, but over the past month, we've seen a majority of city council, we're seeing state lawmakers. We saw Pedro Martinez weigh in publicly about this dispute. Could you explain once and for all why you still don't think it's appropriate to talk about why you're dissatisfied with Pedro Martinez's performance?
Here's what I'm always willing to talk about. Making sure that every single school has a social worker and a counselor and a nurse. Making sure that every single school has a library and a librarian. Making sure that our schools have real college to careers as well as opportunities for the trades, for arts. Imagine a school district that allows for the whole child to develop, where every aspect of their being gets to come to life. That's the picture that I'm painting in this moment, because as a public school teacher, when students show up in the building, they don't ask who the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools is.
This is exactly why people hate politicians. A lot of politicians do it. But the question from the journalist was, can you comment about what's going on with CPS and the removal of the CEO? And Brandon Johnson goes on, oh, what I will answer is, I want to make sure that every school has librarians and every school has this and that and everything else that they need. That wasn't the question. And on top of that, just to show you, some of you might be watching this video and saying, David, why are you being so hard on Mayor Brandon Johnson? It is not just me. This mayor has a 22% approval rating from the citizens of the city of Chicago. You cannot continue to play the race card and avoid questions that journalists are asking because they are trying to provide the information to the citizens of Chicago. They are the fourth estate. Obviously, Mayor Brandon Johnson is not coming out and giving these answers directly to his constituents, or else the journalists wouldn't need to ask the questions. And let me go back to this one. This one in particular that he mentioned earlier, this really caught me off guard.
What are you willing to do with your power to ensure that a school district that stuffed black children in Willis wagons?
For those of you who don't know what Willis wagons are, again, this is Mayor Brandon Johnson going back into the past. And this was a real thing that happened in the city of Chicago. There was a time, obviously in this country, where we had segregated schools. So if you go back in the city of Chicago, into the history of the city of Chicago, if you go back between 1953 and 1966, then Superintendent of Schools, Benjamin C. Willis, he set up these, it was a pejorative term for the portable school classrooms that were used to house black children, because that's what was going on during that time before the desegregation of schools, before Brown versus Board of Education, when the schools were integrated. Announcement. I don't know if you know this, Brandon Johnson, but it's 2024. It is not 1953. It is not 1966. It is more than 60 years later. And here's how you know you're losing your argument. And this is specifically to Mayor Brandon Johnson. We don't have to talk about anybody else. We know other politicians do silly things, but we're concentrating on this right now. This is how you know you're losing the argument. When people are asking you, why are you firing your current CEO? Why did the entire existing school board resign en masse? Are you trying to appoint people who are going to do your bidding? How are you going to fund the government? Where are you going to find the money for the public city schools, for the city? What's going on with the migrants? When people are asking you very specific questions about things that are going on today, and this mayor talks about he's a black man, he's got a black wife with black children, we're not going to put our children into Willis wagons. This is the same country that didn't want to emancipate and free black people because they thought it was going to be bad for the budget. When you have to go back 60, 150, 200 years into the past and bring up these non sequiturs to try and deflect from the answer that you should be giving to the question that was asked, you are losing the argument. Mayor Brandon Johnson's popularity has plummeted. I predict, you know what, I'm going to hold off on my prediction. I'm going to hold off on my prediction right now. But there was one more very interesting question that was asked, and you've got to listen to this. Take a look at this.
Mayor, is this a good week to go to London for a Bears game? And also, who's going to pay for that trip?
All right. Okay. All right.
Great question. I love that question. This entire press conference has been about budget deficits, billions of dollars that the city has to pay. The Chicago Teachers Union needs a $300 million short-term high-interest loan. I think it's a very fair question for the press to ask this mayor, is this a good time to go to London? Let's see how he answers it.
I'm going to London to attract business to Chicago. Okay? I'm going to London to attract business in Chicago.
But are you going to the game?
Hold on a second, because you already know the answer to that. But I just want to make sure that you do the people of Chicago service, because I have to be very honest with you. It's pretty jacked up the way you frame that.
Right.
That is. It is. It's disrespectful and condescending that the black man is going to London for a game. It's disrespectful. It is. And people get away with that too much.
They do.
The governor went to Tokyo. The governor went to Tokyo to attract business. The mayor of Chicago is going to London to attract business, and while I'm there, I'm going to root for the Chicago Bears.
Okay. So he had to play the race card one more time. He couldn't help himself. He had to play that race card one more time. It's jacked up that you're asking a black man if he's going to the game. Brandon Johnson, Mayor Brandon Johnson, that journalist did not ask you that question because you're a black man. That journalist asked you that question because you suspended all non-essential travel because of the projected $1 billion budget deficit that's coming up next year. You did that. And you did that because you were trying to show the people of Chicago that you are taking the budget seriously. So it is not racist. It is not attacking you as a black man for a journalist to ask you while the city is dealing with all of these budget difficulties right now, whether or not it's wise for you to go and fly to London to see a Bears game. Nobody believes that you planned a trip to go to London to attract business, and it just so happens to coincide with the Chicago Bears being in London to play. You can't think people are that dumb. The people of Chicago are not that dumb. And then the icing on the cake is he wanted to bring up Governor J.B. Pritzker and say, well, Governor J.B. Pritzker went to Tokyo to attract business. Guess what? He's a billionaire. He doesn't have to take money from the state of Illinois to do anything. He was a billionaire before he became governor of the state of Illinois. So this press conference was, to me, was completely embarrassing. Whenever he got asked a hard question, either he didn't answer it, there was some non sequitur, or he played the race card. And guess what? The people of Chicago are ultimately going to be the ones who suffer the most because you have a person in the position of mayor who is not qualified to do the job. Oh, you're still here. Thanks for hanging around for a couple of more seconds. I forgot to say this earlier in the video. Do me a favor, subscribe, click your notification bell, drop a comment, and like the video.